Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and joining me as always is Austin the Day Ghost. It's time for a Comic Vault, and we're doing another Comic Vault / ReQuest. So our requested comic series for this evening is Batman Last Night on Earth, which is a Black Label book that came out in 2019. So it feels like a couple of days ago for me, Austin, but somehow it's been over half a decade. I don't know how that works. So early Black Label days, this is, and somehow like 3 years after Dark Knight's Metal.
Okay, I wasn't sure how this fell in line with that, like with other Snyder stuff. Okay,
Yeah, and Death Metal, I guess, was what, a year or two after that? Was that like 20 or 21? It's all a blur for
probably.
me after that, because I was well kind of out of paying a ton of attention to this at that point. And I know there's another Snyder Capullo Batman thing or two here and there, and then of course he's doing the Absolute Batman right now, which people are telling us to review and saying is actually really good. And I hate to be like this. I'm going to be shocked if I love that as well as other people are, just because I haven't liked anything I've heard or seen about that. I just keep hearing, no, really, it's great. And I'm like, he's driving around in a city-sized Batmobile, and it's the Nothingverse. Like, but I mean, I'm open to it. Hopefully it's great.
Well, I've heard his is the weakest, and then I've heard it goes Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman, but
Oh, okay. I
but I
wonder if
don't
that's
know.
just
I
it's a
don't.
high
None of the
bar.
Nothinverse books really appeal to me,
Well,
so
I
I don't
wonder if
know.
people feel like it's a high bar and they're all decent, and Batman just happens to be not the best of them, because that's wild to hear that. Because I keep hearing good things about that Batman book, and it all sounded really dumb to me initially. Now I'm
Yeah,
kind
and
of
I think they're
curious,
adding.
just because people are like it. I also don't trust that because like the bar is so low for mainstream comics right now, and I also think that you have, with respect to everybody, I think you have those Snyder fans that have just like stuck with him through thick and thin and like his style of writing in general more than I do. So like I find Snyder hit and miss before I find him usually great. And there are certainly I mean, I think he hits more often than Zack Snyder, but
Well, I mean, yeah, absolutely. No, I like Scott Snyder, but I agree. I do think he is hit or miss. I think the biggest thing, and I mean, maybe this is different with Absolute Batman because it's something a little more different, but I feel like he kind of needs to get away from DC. Like go to Marvel or do some more independent stuff, I
do
think.
your
Like
own stuff.
I feel like for me anyways, and we'll talk about it with this book, is I feel like he's kind of said everything he has to say with Batman, and it's kind of just um, grinding gears after that. So
Yeah, it feels like his trajectory after the end of his run proper with Batman has been mostly uh, just what wild, kooky plot twists can I throw out that have never been done before. And it's just like wild nutso idea after wild nutso idea. And there's a novelty to some of that, don't get me wrong. I can't say Snyder is not creative in this stuff. I
hmm
It just doesn't tend to gel for me after his main run, and really before that run was over, because I didn't love that last arc, and then some of this is coming back to me now, and then he had, I forget the name of the book that he was on with Rebirth, but like that stuff I didn't like at all. That first arc was like
oh,
a Mister
okay.
Freeze thing. I don't remember what that's called now, but
hmm
it's been
Yeah,
like a
okay.
decade
Oh,
now.
is that the one that's called All Star, or was
Yes,
that
thank you. That is All
okay?
Star Batman. Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay, because I knew he did an All Star Batman, but I couldn't remember when that was. Okay. Um, no, and I feel like a lot of his bigger stuff now is just very gimmicky. Like, look,
Yeah.
it's Joker Batman, and he fights the Justice League Batman, and we definitely have that with this book.
Well, and the first metal, I really liked for the first couple of issues. I just like I was enjoying the novelty of just how wild and crazy that was, and then it lost me somewhere.
hmm
And death metal I didn't even bother with because I never finished metal, and I thought the Batman Who Laughs got way oversaturated and too popular too quickly. But I did really like the miniseries he did for that character. I forgot about that. That's probably the last Snyder thing that I actually really enjoyed. Maybe it's a
Hmm.
guilty pleasure. Like I'd have to go back and look at it, but I remember really enjoying that when I read it.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I guess this goes into it too. Is I just really don't like modern Batman. Like I think Batman is kind of in as bad of a place as Spider-Man is. We just don't talk about it as much. Maybe a little bit more now because people weren't liking the Zdarsky run. But I don't know. They're very comparable, I think, for me. Where
Yeah,
it's
I
like
agree
we've
with that.
lost like all of the appeal of what I like about both of those characters, and we
I
just
had
push
this,
forward
I
more and
had
more
that
into
thought the
that.
other day where with Spider-Man. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you.
No, no,
I
I mean I was pretty much done.
I had this thought the other day where I'm like, there's this weird. I don't know if I can call it cynical or what, but there's this kind of sad trajectory or strategy that happened with both DC and Marvel about the same time with Spider-Man and Batman respectively. And the strategies are different, but they ultimately I kind of achieve the same thing, which is make everything or make the stories about every other character besides Batman. Or besides Spider-Man. So with Spider-Man, it was make it all about Spider-Verse, and with Batman, it was put every Bat family character you can up front. And on the comic side, there was certainly a lot more straight up Batman stories, and I felt like I was just seeing a Bruce Wayne that I didn't really agree with. But there still was a decent amount of that going on. It's just that there's so much Batman at DC that there were still some Bruce Wayne stories being told.
See, I feel like Batman's the other way. I think the issue with Batman is they're like make everything Batman, and they've gone like way too hard on the. I'm gonna call it the memification of Batman, but that's they're obviously doing it darker, which is um, the because I'm Batman thing is just become the character now, which I really hate. I also think one of the biggest things that's ruined the Joker as a character is that uh, the Batman and Joker dynamic became a thing, if you will, where it's like neither of these characters can show up now in a story together without it becoming
A big
a
deal.
deconstruction
It
of
has
their
to be a
relationship.
big freaking deal every time. It's always got to be deconstruction, and it's
And
always
it's
got to
always just a
feel.
killing joke again.
Yeah, and it's always got to act real self-important about it and pretend like it's the
Hmm.
first time it's dealing with nearly always the same themes.
Hmm.
No, I guess
No,
you're right
exactly.
with the it's always Batman problem. I guess I've got a bit of a bias because
That
I
goes more like outside of comics,
that's what I
but
was
I
gonna
do
say.
agree with what you're
That's what I was
saying.
gonna say is I'm so in extra media all the time that I was seeing somebody
Hmm.
like Batman without Batman. I
Hmm.
but
No,
the
absolutely.
other thing they and then we'll actually get into this book. We haven't said one word about this yet. But the other thing that those trajectories I think really have in common, Austin. Tell me if you agree with this. Is just and this is kind of to your point earlier, losing sight of what those characters were all about for the sake of I like other things like superficial things that make them really popular and being too influenced by their popularity. So with Spider-Man, it kind of in a weird way it kind of became like golden or silver age Batman, where it was like all about gadgetry, where it was all about like he's a scientist with a lot of money now, and we kind of forget about the street level Parker luck of it all. And with Batman,
Well, we just couldn't let Peter grow either with
and with
Spider-Man.
Batman, right? But this is just the parallel I'm making between these characters.
Yeah.
And then with Batman, it was we forgot about the uh like gritty detective stuff, and
Hmm.
we leaned also too much on gadgetry and super science and all of that. So like they really have that in common.
One, as I've said for like I probably talked about this on the channel before. Like, I feel like Batman hasn't had like a real status quo in his main book since like before Morrison. Like his book has just become events where it's just like here are stories that are big important things, and obviously like
And Spider-Man has that to
it's
some degree too.
and obviously like after Snyder, because Snyder really has that. Like there are smaller things in say like King and whatnot, but like I feel like we still haven't gotten back to just here is just the day to day ongoing Bruce Wayne story.
And I don't. We'll go ahead and get into Last Night on Earth. I don't want to hold that against this book too much because it's a Black Label thing. It's technically out of continuity. It's made to be an event thing. It's at least not in the main book, but also having to be an event. But I'm so burnt out on that
hmm
that it,
And it still has that that like because I'm Batman, like I can do anything thing where
yeah,
it's like I don't even really buy that this world exists because it's so built on that as a foundation. And I mean, that's whatever. And I will say, like, I don't hate this book because I'm probably going to come off more negative, but it's more negative in just my overall feelings of Batman currently.
I'm having that too, and it's so more of the same with stuff that I got really burnt out on with Snyder. Like all of
Yeah.
his staples from the end of his run are here and just kind of taken to the nines. So we're
Mhm.
back to like kind of spelling everything out on the page and making Batman too kind of ubiquitous and all encompassing. Morrison is one of those things that was great and ruined everything, right? Because Morrison makes that universe so Batman centric, going all the way to like doing the Return of Bruce Wayne thing and sending him all the way back to the beginning of history and having all this Batman stuff that informs the world. But somehow all that stuff with like it's not exactly what I want, but like it was pretty great. And now Batman just feels like way too, like you said, can do anything and the whole world revolves around him, and I'm really sick of that.
Well, Morrison is like JMS Spider-Man, where it's like the actual writing in it, I think, is good, but there's so many ideas it brings in that I really don't jive with
What a great
that make it
point.
way too big.
And that's another thing where they have these things in common, right? Where you get these kind of like wacky out there ideas that were cool for those ones, but really shouldn't have taken over, and not too far apart timeline wise.
No, they're
Like
in the same
those
decade.
happen about the same time.
hmm I think they're like maybe a few years apart, but yeah.
So yeah, I guess this is a dissertation in how Batman and Spider-Man have been ruined in almost exactly the same way.
But
That's what I'm getting at.
that's okay because a lot of Snyder Batman stuff ends up becoming a dissertation on Batman, so it's fine.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Well, what a great discussion. Now let's review this book, I guess. So, this is 3 issues. They're oversized, about 60 pages each, so about 180 pages. Kind of reads like a big graphic novel. And early Black Label did, I think, a lot of this format of just like
Yeah, a lot of the
three
three
issues.
issue, yeah. No, a lot of the Black Label books I've read are 3 issues. That's actually, I think I talked about this with Riddler Year One. That's what threw me off, and I only read half of it. Was because I got 3 issues when they were out, and went, "Oh, okay, it's done." Got to the end and realized it wasn't.
Tyler Zayas says Morrison starts a little before JMS ends, but they're not
hmm
super far apart.
hmm
Like I said, they're at least in the same decade.
Yeah, I knew Morrison started like near the end, and or not near the end, but you know what I mean,
That's a little
like
later than I was
in the back half.
than I realized, I guess. But yeah,
Mhm.
I'm rusty. It's all running together for me at this point. But anyway, so this is supposed to be like a obviously it has to be out of continuity. This is all set in the future, and it's not like definitive how the Batman would end or how the DC universe would end. It's kind of like Kingdom Come in that way, and I've got a lot of Kingdom Come parallels to make with this. This book, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. I'm going to put a pin in this, Austin, but this story felt like a weird blend to me of Kingdom Come and Injustice. It's like the flip of Injustice. It's like if Batman went bad instead of Superman.
hmm Yeah, when I was like early on,
But without all the fun.
obviously, yeah, early on, obviously, like it's not super like this book, but I did have kind of like a oh, Snyder had his year one with 0 years, so now he has to have his Dark Knight Returns.
Oh, good call. Yep, it's that too. The difference, of course, is that with Miller, he does year one and Dark Knight Returns like around the same time, and this is him trying to kind of play it like the end of his magnum opus. Like he's got his start and his finish, and he's done everything else in between, and it's
He
it's a
did everything, so then he had to do nothing. That was what was left.
it's a real wild premise. Austin, would you give us a bit of a breakdown of what
Oh
happens
God,
here?
okay. Just breaking down the beginning is hard.
And then Dan Schneider, yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, do you want to do a regular synopsis, or should we just kind of
No,
explain
no,
it as
no,
we
I can.
go?
No, I can do it.
And then I'll read your super chat after we finish with the synopsis. Dan Schneider, appreciate you, buddy.
Okay, so Batman is investigating a crime where he sees that there are lines that all paint a picture of a dead Batman where the heart of Batman would be in the same spot where his parents died. So he goes there and he finds a kid that reminds him of himself, obviously, and then
It
it
starts
shoots
with a
him.
cool premise for a detective story that we then immediately abandon.
Well, and I immediately laughed because Alfred was like, "Oh, this case is different than most." He was investigating it for about a year, and I was like, "Ah, that's normal for a Jeff Loeb Batman detective story. Oh,
He's
he's
done,
done a few of those."
he's done that a lot. No, the point he was making was it's unusual because nobody's dead.
No, it's just funny the way it reads, where it's like,
That's
"Oh,
true.
it's unusual compared to others." He was investigating it for a year. They're just like back to back, and it
I'll
was
try
kind of
not to
funny.
stop you too much, but dude, I
Yeah.
was so disappointed that that wasn't just the the catalyst for the story and that wasn't what the whole thing was about, because I was immediately kind of engaged in that idea where it's like there's a big chalk outline around Gotham of Batman and it's like Batman's gonna die, and somebody has to know that he's Bruce Wayne because it ends in Crime Alley, and then he finds a kid that looks like him that's dead, and like all of that's really interesting, and
Well,
that
the book
ends
hits
up
you with like six premises at the start, and it's like, "Oh, is
yeah,
this what the
all
book's
these
gonna be?"
inciting incidents, and like
Mhm.
eventually it all it's convoluted, but it makes sense in that I understand what happened. I'll say that. So like eventually that comes back and we understand why that was there. I don't love the point of that ultimately, but anyway, sorry, I won't keep interrupting you, but I just wanted to say that was a cool idea, and I was sad that wasn't what the book was ultimately about.
Mhm. So then Bruce wakes up in an insane asylum, and it turns out that he was actually crazy and he killed his own parents. And he's starting to recover now. It's like the first time he's woken up from his Batman delusion, and
It's your favorite TV
everything's
episode
okay.
premise, Austin. I know you love these.
Yeah, no, I love insane. Yeah, yeah, and all the villains are different doctors he's worked with, and we name a couple of them and what they do, and then Bruce Wayne escapes. But then it turns out he's living in the Matrix that Alfred made, so that he can live a happy life. Um, Even though he killed his parents in this world that he made. But anyways, so Batman escapes from there into
Yeah,
he like digs himself out
why
of
is that what he comes at? Why can't he make it more of a utopia? Like, why can't he do some kind of perchance to dream sort of
Alfred
thing?
couldn't think of for chance to dream exactly.
No, he
Yeah,
didn't. Alfred's an asshole.
he is an asshole. So then Batman digs his way out into the orange sand, and I was very confused by the geography of that or what was happening. And when he digs himself out, oh, and I should mention too with Alfred, he realizes Alfred's an old man now, so time has clearly passed. So in this desert, Batman finds the head of the Joker that's in a lantern, and then he carries that, and now they're going to have their adventure. We have our kooky little sidekick character and Batman, and they're
He's
going to
got
do their thing.
he's got his Deadpool head.
Yeah, yeah, I was thinking that too.
He's got to do that thing.
Uh, yeah.
What's weird?
No,
What's
Scott
weird about
Snyder's
this?
clearly a fan of both Arkham Knight's Joker and Mark Hamill in Darksiders, where he's just there to pal around and make jokes while you do things.
Yeah, there's an episode of Angel that does that. There's a lot of the head sidekick that, and then I
Yeah,
won't
like Lollipop Chainsaw too is like that.
I won't talk about this too much, but I was distracted by a couple of major things in this that are things that I've done in video projects. It was weird because
Mhm.
like I'm doing the head thing in my movie, and I'm not revealing anything
Oh
because I put
my
it because
god.
I put it in my trailer. But there's also another thing in this that was that was going to be a major component of Batman Year before we ended up shutting that project down. And I was like, why is all this
Mhm.
stuff that I did in the Snyder book? It's very strange
He
for
was just a
me.
big fan. He was sad you didn't finish it, so he made it himself. He did the Thanos thing. He was like,
I'm
I'll
being
do it myself.
self-indulgent bringing that up, but it was a really weird experience for me.
Yeah, so they go on an adventure together where they find Wonder Woman, who has the last of the remaining survivors, and she tells Batman about how the world went to hell because of him, because all the civilians rose up against the heroes and the villains and slowly killed them over time. And now somebody named Omega Batman has the what's it called? The oh my god, the equation, the
The
anti-life
anti-life
equation.
equation because he
Yeah,
beheaded Darkseid and carries him around on a pike.
yeah, exactly. So we can use the anti-life equation through Darkseid's severed head, and she's like, "Well, we believe Omega Batman is somebody that Batman trained, but we don't know who." And Batman's like, "Well, I'm gonna go beat him up because that's what I do. I'm Batman." And also, just in the scene, we drop that Batman created a machine to to like produce more Batman. I don't know. I didn't finish Snyder's run. Is that like a thing that pops up in his run? Because that's really
I
stupid. I
don't
really hate that
I
idea.
don't think so. That's
Hmm.
the excuse to get a younger Batman character in this because you can't have the way he's telling the story. You can't have the big reveal at the end of who Omega is unless the Batman we're following is a clone of Batman.
Hmm.
Or if you did make your main character somebody different, Austin, then it would only be a 2-issue miniseries because there would be no reason for the Matrix business in Arkham Asylum, which
Oh,
ultimately
okay.
kind of reads as pointless to me.
Hmm. Yeah.
You get these
So
kind of odd
then.
false starts. Um,
Hmm.
and I like that's a real typical genre TV episodic thing, but like it could have been a cool story depending on what he did with it. But like I said, I was really distracted by Alfred's kind of a jerk for doing that to him, like making him think he killed his own parents so that he doesn't have to maybe go off the deep end. But then when we find out what Omega Batman actually is there some degree of Alfred kind of like punishing him there? It doesn't read that way, so probably not.
Hmm. No, I don't think so. And I don't know, there's a lot of just like sloppy mystery box storytelling in this. Like
Yes,
even
there
when Omega
is.
Batman talks to Alfred and they play the pronoun game like Force Awakens, where it's like we're just not going to say names because
Yeah.
we can't tell the audience yet, and it's like this isn't how these characters talk, though.
Well, it's even worse
Uh,
than that because hold on, I took a
yeah,
picture of this so that I can quote it properly, Austin.
yeah.
Uh, I'm sorry. I promised I wouldn't stop you. This is so complicated. This story. He says, okay, so Alfred in a flashback. Is it in a flashback? I forget. Alfred goes up to Omega Batman and he
It's not in the
says,
flashback. That's where Alfred dies.
and that's what it is. And he says, "I know who you are. How could you after everything he meant to you?" Who is he talking about when ultimately we know who Omega Batman is?
I have no idea.
Right?
I
Because that
it's
seems
the
like
it's
it's just to
the
throw off the reader.
the Obi-Wan thing from a certain point of view.
Yeah, I think it's worse than that, but
Oh no, it is worse than that. I just mean like I guess that's the only way around it.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so Batman and Joker then go off on an adventure until they eventually get to Gotham, where they meet the Court of the Owls, who are run by Dick Grayson, and that's where you have like the last remaining people in Gotham that are the Resistance.
Real
and we
quick, how
find out
much
that
of this,
yeah.
just while we're on this panel, how much of this felt like just a like Nightmare Batman from BVS turned into a whole series?
Oh, I didn't really have that.
So it was two
No, I was
things.
thinking more so. Yeah, go
It
ahead.
was Batman in the desert, and it was the business with the Speed Force storms.
Oh, okay.
I just could not
See, the
stop
Speed
thinking
Force
BVS
thing.
when you've got these Speed Force flashes coming out to Batman and screaming at him from tornadoes.
No, that stuff reminded me more of Old Man Logan. Like you have
I had some of that too.
little glimpses of Old Man Logan while they're going through the world, and you're like this here where we have like a little swamp thing, an Animal Man adventure that he flies through. Like we do like a couple pages that imply like a bigger world like that did, but we don't really live with any of it. I want that book though. I want kaiju-sized Swamp Thing destroying a military facility. That's the book I want.
Yeah, that kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, so they get to Gotham. They team up with the last remaining heroes that are there. Wonder Woman arrives to help them too, and then they're like,
Mohawk
"Okay,
Wonder
we're gonna
Woman.
take." Yeah, Mohawk Wonder Woman, exactly. Oh, and I forgot about this where they meet Superman, but he's not really Superman. He's a Superman from another universe because Lex Luthor is living on like a Kansas farm where he's pulling Superman out of the universe. He's like pulling Clark Kent babies out of the universe and raising them because he's living with them because he really misses and loves Superman. I don't know. That whole thing is very bizarre.
I was really
Um,
lost with that because it seems like he's bringing the rockets down, but the
mhm.
Supermans that he has also seem to be like screwed up clone science experiment things. They're not all the
Well, I
kids
thought
from the
they were
rockets.
robots at
And
first. Yeah.
so I don't know what all the Supermans are, and I don't know what the deal is with the rockets exactly. I I do sort of like the idea that because we haven't even gotten to the backstory with how Lex is kind of at fault for creating this dystopia, but
Mhm.
I kind of like that Lex has turned around now to the point where he sees Superman as like absolutely necessary and he feels guilty for getting rid of him, and so he's like desperately trying to recreate Superman, which is kind of a nice twisted uh version of like Lex constantly cloning Superman for sadistic reasons.
Yeah. Man, I guess I can see why that would be cool. Like you could do that. I don't know. That idea didn't work for me like at all.
I
I
don't
do think
like
you
the
can have
execution
like
of any of
the
this really, but just that as a notion I thought was kind of cool. But I also think
well,
that
it's
it's maybe a little forced because he's trying to do the same thing he's doing with Joker, which is also really forced. Where he's like,
yes.
let's have the villains be the new heroes and sidekicks, and let's have our at least one of our heroes be the worst thing that ever happened.
Well, I have no idea why Batman is carrying the head of the Joker, like at all.
No, or
Uh,
why he comes to see Joker is kind of endearing.
yeah, I didn't really get any of that. And he,
I don't get this Batman at all, and I have to chalk it up to he's a clone. What does he know? I like like I have to. That's the only way I can reconcile the way he is written in this because
mhm,
he seems real all over the place to me.
mhm. Yeah, and Joker's constantly just making annoying jokes, and Batman tells him to shut up, and that's their relationship until the very end,
And then by the
uh,
end, it's like
where Joker becomes Robin.
no, no Joker gets to be Robin, and he would be a better Batman than Omega, which I guess is true only in that Joker's never like gone that genocidal. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
Or maybe not
I mean,
genocidal, but just his plots haven't been like haven't murdered quite as many people, and he hasn't had that kind of a epic mind control kind of thing. I don't know. I guess just by comparison, but like at the point where that doesn't make Joker endearing.
mhm. But yeah, so we find out Lex has this plan where he puts a bunch of kryptonite into the Earth, and Starro linked everyone's brains, and Lex and Superman are going to have a debate on TV, and whoever wins at the end of it, people can either think doom or justice, and whoever thinks one of the other more, that person will win, and then the kryptonite will come out and kill the person who lost. And Superman gives this heartfelt, beautiful speech, and everybody loves it. And Lex Luthor gives this horrible speech that's like plagiarized and it sucks. And Lex is like, "Well, I lost. Superman's going to save me." But then everybody thinks Doom instead, and Superman dies. And
it's just like Kingpin somehow getting elected mayor in Daredevil Born Again. I don't understand. Like I don't buy it at all. It's basically if the bad side won the two votes in Dark Knight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, you can make a statement that maybe humanity has just gotten that far gone at this point. Like Lex's whole point is just complete nihilism. Like global warming is killing us, he says, and like nobody believes in anything anymore and all of that, and so like we're just completely falling apart and everybody knows it. This Austin was maybe as like outlandish as so much of this is. This was the thing that I maybe bought the least in the book.
Yeah, I mean, like I get what it's saying. It's just that we're not living with it. Like we're not dealing with.
That's what I mean.
Of that.
It's not just that more people said doom than goodness. And this might sound like a minor point. I didn't buy the setup of this at all because the explanation for why Superman even went along with it is Lex told everyone publicly about this, so Superman had to do it. Why couldn't Superman have just said, "No, I'm not engaging in this, Lex. This is insane and I won't do it." Like Lex couldn't have forced him to do that. Like, why didn't Superman say, "No, I'm not going to debate you about good versus evil. Obviously, good is better. You're stupid. Goodbye." That was the thing I didn't buy about it.
Yeah, I mean, I can see Superman being like, I'm Superman. I can do that and show the world or whatever.
If that was his attitude, and again, we don't actually see it, but the attitude apparently, if you could buy Lex's, he just kind of like hunches his head down like a sad Powerpuff Girl and goes, "Well, I guess Lex already told everybody on television, so I have to do this." It's like, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, it also doesn't help that it's like a Super Friends plot. V Crazy also popped up in the chat.
Hey, look, they have that Hall
something.
of Justice, so that's fine.
Yeah, no, that's true. Cleared up the Superman thing and the second I read it, I was like, "That's right. That is what it is." But it was kind of already fading in my brain, admittedly. But they are robot Supermen, and then the rockets, they're coming down, but there's no babies in them.
That's
they're just
right.
dust.
He
so
says
it's like
they're
a mix
already.
Of like,
yeah, he says they're already dead by the time they get to him. That's what it was.
Which is then weird because the robots also bleed, so I think that's what threw me off. But anyways.
Well, I'd have to go back and look at it. It's like some weird hybrid thing. He talks about it like, well, he used Kryptonian DNA, so they must be robots that have some human component or Kryptonian component. Kind of like the robots in Alien or something.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Where there's tissue. They're not just metal.
I don't know. Everything with Lex I thought was like really dumb. And so he dies, so we can move away from him, and that's when we get to Gotham. Because I realized, while you're flipping through, I forgot this key part of the story that we stopped to talk to Lex.
It's easy to do.
Exactly. Yeah, so then all the heroes rise up and they take down Omega Batman, who was actually the real Batman. Shock and awe.
Yep.
I hope you didn't guess that immediately. And
he's trying so hard to throw you off that scent, and it's just obvious. It's the only thing it can be.
Obvious. And then Joker, Batman, and Mohawk Wonder Woman. Sorry, Joker as Robin, Batman, and Mohawk Wonder Woman.
Oh yes, because hold on, because we haven't talked about Dick Grayson leading the Court of the Owls.
Oh no, I did mention that.
Oh, you did? Oh, sorry, I was looking.
Yeah, I said that and then had to jump back because I forgot the Lex thing.
Oh, sorry, because the reason he gets a robot Robin suit is because Tim Drake left that behind.
Yeah, because he died and he like has his neck broken. So he builds himself a robot suit that allows him to move. And
I'm gonna be
yeah, so
really
then
mad if they ever. Sorry, I'm gonna be really mad if they ever put out an Omega pop figure because it means I'm gonna have to buy it, and that's just not an attractive costume.
no,
Just doesn't
that is true.
just doesn't look good. He looks like a
Yeah,
generic Power Rangers villain.
so then because all of these books now have to end with some sort of hook that we can then keep milking it for
Uh
of like
huh.
here's where it's gonna go, and it just straight up takes the one from Old Man Logan. We end with Batman, Mohawk Wonder Woman, Joker Robin finally finding the Clark Kent ship that lands and it's a baby inside, so they're gonna raise Superman.
Yeah. Yeah, they got to have the sequel bait, like with Last Ronin or something. But you're
Yeah,
right, they
no,
all
because
do it.
they all have it
In
now.
case it's popular enough, you got to come back and do another one.
Which I mean, I guess you can also lob at Dark Knight Returns, but it doesn't feel like there's more to do. It also just feels like an ending to Batman. It just isn't definitive, I guess. Like so they could make a sequel, but
Well, and I wouldn't have minded it if I liked the book more, right? Like, I might not want more of this, but to end with kind of an ambiguous, well, there's a status quo now. There's stuff they could do. Is not really a problem. The problem is, and we can talk about how we feel about, uh, you know, like real Batman as the villain of this, and if that's too mean spirited and all of that. But like, you throw Batman under the bus and then you make Joker this clone Batman's new Robin, and they're going to raise Superman. Yeah. Like I don't
yeah,
want to imagine where that goes. Like,
yeah, and
how's
it's something
that?
I.
That's hopeful, I guess,
Hmm.
because of the whole. Well, there was always still at least a little residue of goodness left in evil Batman. So Batman always, because they've got the motif that Snyder keeps banging you over the head with he always leaves the door open. He leaves it cracked for goodness to come through, and he made the mistake of leaving the door literally open in the Hall of Justice, and all the citizens, instead of doing the right thing, run in and take over and try to kill everybody. And so Batman realizes that he didn't, actually inspire anyone, he thinks, and everything he did was for naught. And so that's why he goes off the deep end. And I guess at the end, the hopeful thing is, well, the clone isn't going to go through all of that, but even if he did, there's always still a little bit of goodness left in Batman. And I don't know. I mean, it's sloppy at best, but it just felt a little icky to me. Like it didn't feel like a real hopeful ending like it's supposed to.
Oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. I don't know. I was more so just lost, and I was like, this just feels tropey. Like it's just this is what they all do, so this has to end this way. Especially because like the Lex stuff was so bad that by the time we got to that point, I was kind of trying to gaslight myself into thinking it wasn't real. So I was like, oh yeah, I guess that did happen.
I went back and skimmed it after I read it because I was really numb at the end and I just couldn't decide what I even thought of it. So I
Mhm.
had more thoughts about the actual story and thematic stuff
Yeah,
when I went back and looked at it again.
yeah, and I'll say, like, I don't find Batman being evil like mean spirited or whatever. That's fine. My issue is more so it's just really dumb. Like it's
I
the
also I
ultimate
bought
example.
how it happened. Like the situations, kind of just like a goofy idea, and it's too vague. And I would have liked to have seen some of it, maybe at the risk of suggesting flashbacks. But just to go generically, like humanity kind of lost itself, and all Lex Luthor has to do is say like pick doom or goodness, and then Superman's dead, and then I guess that happens after they storm the hall, right? I think
No, no, they.
Hadn't that
That stuff
happened
happens
already?
before. No, no, they do that after Superman
Is
dies.
that right? Okay. Okay. I
Mhm.
couldn't remember what the what the actual timeline was with that, but
Yeah. But my thing, I guess, more so is just it's the ultimate example of that. What I was talking about earlier of the well, Batman can do anything because he's Batman. Uh, so it's like, oh, he's got a trophy room of everyone he's killed, and it's like, Black Adam and Sinestro and like all this stuff, and he decapitated Darkseid, and now he has his head, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but he's Batman. like,
yeah. No, I had that too.
like no, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I get that he's Batman, so you can do the because he's Batman thing, but like, it's all part of that laziness and storytelling for this character at this point, where it's like, that's all you gotta give. That's it. Like,
Yeah, because the
I
anti-life
can't buy
equation.
that Batman can kill all these people and
No.
like take over the planet and all this stuff.
Well, the
Like,
well, the anti-life equation becomes the plot device that allows him to do everything he does later, but he might as well have been
yeah.
that powerful before he got it because
Mhm.
I mean, like go back to Morrison and remember how Batman gets we fought dead and then thrown back in time. Like that was because of Darkseid. How did he decapitate Darkseid? Like he
He
should be
had
no
prep time,
match.
I guess.
He should be no match for that character.
hmm
Not to just turn this into a
Yeah.
debate about like who would win in a fight or whatever, but like that is taking that idea way too far. I totally agree with you. But the thing I
Mhm.
was really kind of latching onto was just the question of what does it take for me to buy Batman going that far off the deep end where he becomes uh like a rogue where he becomes a villain. And obviously this isn't the first time that we've played around with this idea before, and he
Mhm.
is we kind of dance around with it in Kingdom Come, where he's not a straight up villain, but he's gotten kind of like totalitarian, where he's basically just running the streets of Gotham like a police state, which is a thing that I could always kind of buy happening to a cynical, grizzled, elderly Batman, even without this kind of gigantic catalyst. But to go this far, where he would take the anti-life equation and literally start controlling people's minds, what would that take? And I couldn't stop thinking about Injustice because I need the kind of extreme crazy situation where I could see him falling off like that. And the reason it works okay in Injustice is because it's gradual and we see it happen, and he doesn't just completely lose it. Even after he spoilers for that, it like accidentally kills Lois with his own bare hands. He like he tries to do the right thing after that, and he just becomes uh, darker and feels like he's got to take more control as it goes along. We actually get to see all of that happen, and this was kind of a lame situation to be the thing that makes that happen to Batman to me.
Well, and for me, it's like because Injustice is dumb, but at the same time, like it's an excuse to have characters fight each other in a game. Like even with the book, like it's still just a tie-in for that. Like they do the best they can with it, but like at the end of the day, like that is all it is. This doesn't have that though, so it's like it's got a plot that I think is that thin, but it doesn't have that excuse for it. So it's like you could have also handled that better. I also think we needed more from him as a character because all we get is that speech he gives about how bats can only see because they like echo out and it comes back to them and they all have their own frequency so they can't hear each other. So he's going to make everyone follow his frequency because it's a bat thing, and it's like I'm not reading a character's thought process. I'm reading a writer
Yeah,
talking about it, which when Snyder doesn't work, I really have that issue.
yeah. Yeah, and he's just kind of analyzing his own thing on the page, and it gets really formulaic. He usually has the two motifs that are repeated throughout that keep coming in and out, and then are like a really obvious kind of spelled out allegory by the end. And this has that. It's the he always leaves the door open and the echolocation idea, and that if he could handle it more subtly, I actually really like that as an idea. Because one thing Snyder tries to do sometimes is actually use bats as a metaphor or an allegory for something, and I wish we did that more with Batman. When it works, it's a cool thing to do, and the idea that like bats don't actually talk to each other, they can't read each other's echolocation, so it's like Batman is throwing his voice out into a void. Oh, and actually, I guess the third one is the signal thing, which is related to that. So the holding the door open thing, I guess, is less of an allegory and more of a motif. But you sort of have three. I forgot about the signal business, but and that's related to the echolocation. But the idea is he's trying to be a symbol, and he's trying to, make it to where no kid has to go through what he went through, and then when the whole world turns against the heroes, he goes, "Oh, I've made no difference whatsoever." And so the echolocation idea as a metaphor for screaming into the void, no, that's good. It's just not executed real well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, and it's really unfortunate because I actually think the first scene where we bring up the Echo thing is genuinely like maybe the best scene of the book, where he's talking to the kid. I really liked that scene, and then it comes back and it gets worse. But I do really like the scene where he's talking to the kid, and Wonder Woman's like, "Okay, we're gonna move everyone into this new realm where everything's dark," and the kid's like, "I'm afraid of the dark. Like, but you're a Batman. Like, you can see in the dark, right?" And then he explains like, "No, bats can only see like through echoes. They don't literally see." I thought that scene was really good.
Yeah, I'm with you. You know what? One of the weirdest things that happens is, let's
What's
go
that?
hide in the underworld.
Also, this scene right
That
here
was
that we're stopped
wild.
on, when he sees Alfred, is straight up ripped from Pirates of the Caribbean 3, and I couldn't believe it, but but it
I didn't
is
have that thought.
where Batman sees Alfred and he's like, "Alfred, you're not dead. I just saw
Just
you."
saw you.
No. I was like,
That's
"What?
true.
Why is this a worse scene of the scene from Pirates 3?"
Dan Schneider had some super chats that we haven't hit yet, and I'm sorry for taking so long
Mhm.
on this. But let me go ahead and read these. His first super
Yep.
chat at $5. He says Chuck Dixon says the problem with modern writers is that instead of the primary concern being telling good stories in service of the characters, and then it continues to another super chat, more concerned with their writing being noticed or talked about instead of just telling good character stories. He said he liked to disappear in his writing and not draw attention to who was writing. That, and then one more super chat continuing this thought, that modern writers are more concerned with their stories being pretentiously analyzed than telling good stories, specifically Batman Joker stories. And I've more or less said that in the past, but there's
Yeah,
definitely
I
some
mean,
truth to that.
I do think there's truth to that. I think specifically with the two characters, we talked about from the beginning, Spider-Man and Batman. I do think part of the issue is also editorial. But then
Yeah.
I also feel like we've hit points with specifically Batman, where it's also become this level of, okay, what haven't we done?
Yes.
And there's a lot of that too, where it's like, okay, well, we haven't done, uh, you know, Bane killing Alfred. Like, let's do that. We haven't done, I don't know, evil Joker Batman. Like, things like that, where it's like, these aren't especially good concepts, but it's things we haven't done. So
Well,
it's
and I
like,
think the self seriousness is actually uh, partly a symptom of what you were talking about, Austin, where it's like
mhm,
we what we do is we get, and you see this on television a lot too, we get really gimmicky in just trying to come up with something that's never been done before, and they turn into these like big wild kind of plot twists. And to compensate for the inherent silliness of some of those ideas, we have to uh, really force a message or a moral or something, and make a big deal
mhm.
out of how important it is. And so I don't know if like I think that might be somewhat of an oversimplification from Chuck Dixon if he said that. I think it comes from sometimes different motivations. So sometimes, yeah, it is ego and like I want to be the next Frank Miller. I want people to talk about my story. And I think some of it is whether it comes from the writer or editorial or both, Austin, like you're talking about. I think sometimes, and maybe these things go together even, it's we've got to carve out something new and we got to not look like a cartoon. And we know, and also we know only adults are reading this stuff now, so they need to be validated in reading comics and feel like they're reading something of substance. I think there's a lot of that too.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, I do think that there is truth to what Dixon said, and he's not the only person I've heard say that. Just even with other comic creators. Um, so yeah.
Razzie says this book is dumb. I'm seeing a lot of that. People just saying it kind of sounds dumb. Braid Atkinson is also saying that. Yeah, a lot of it for me was just weird execution, Austin. Like there's some kind of like individual ideas that on their own in a vacuum I like okay. But it also seemed like just a bunch of random things that don't necessarily go together, and that's supposed to be some of the novelty of it. Is like, look how crazy this is.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely some of that. No, while reading it, I feel like it's a book that almost dies from a thousand cuts, where it's like from the get go, I'm not really loving it, but I'm also not hating it. Like it kind of is just air, and then
Yeah,
it just gets kind of stupider and stupider as it goes. Where there's just thing after thing that I go, okay, I don't know about that. Okay, I don't know about that. And I think it still has that kind of just air quality to it throughout. It's just that
yeah, that's a great way to
the
put it.
concepts get dumber, but like in terms of how it's handled, like it just kind of exists. Like I don't know, I don't feel strongly enough about it how it's actually executed or handled. It's just that some of the ideas I think get dumber as it goes along.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. My take on it is slightly different, Austin, because
Yeah.
I'm seeing too much baggage from the Snyder Capullo run. Like, I wish I could look at this more in a vacuum. I wish it wasn't the big, kind of culmination of their run where like you can look at it as it counts or not. But that's what it's supposed to read like. Where it's sort of like a I mean, it's all fantasy, but it's kind of like a fantasy ending that's not going to count in continuity. But it's weird because then Tom King also sort of had that with his Batman Catwoman, which is much worse than this, and was not really set in the future. But that's also a now sort of out of continuity thing that we did in Black Label. So I guess Black Label is also the place where sometimes it's Elseworldsy and sometimes it's the place where you do things that you don't want to make canon but are connected to a pre-existing run. It's very complicated.
You know what? You know what though? Like obviously like that does sound silly, but at the same time, while you're saying that, that's maybe not like an awful idea that you can have just after a big run, the creators come in and they get to do their ending kind of out of continuity.
No, it's cool.
That's not an awful idea.
I just wish they'd make a good one.
They'd make a good one. No, I agree. But just the way you were saying that, I was like, you know what? That's actually like an interesting concept.
Yeah,
you're
well,
right.
Batman
Make a
Catwoman's
good one.
awkward because that one was supposed to be in continuity, and it reads like it's not because it's terrible. Like that's how it reads. I don't think that's true, but that's what it reads like. This, don't ever read that, Austin. But
well, is that book just called The Bad and the Cat, 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 The Bad and the Cat until it hits the bottom of the page, or is it just called Batman and Catwoman?
It should be. It's got Phantasm in it for some reason, and they ruined that.
I knew that we brought Phantasm in somewhere, but I wasn't sure where it was.
That's where it was, and it's bad. But
it's because we hadn't done it yet, though.
That's it. Yeah, but do her in comics. I would love that. Just do it well.
We haven't brought Catwoman. We haven't brought Gwen Stacy back yet, technically. So we got to do it.
We got to do that. But Jason asked me today. He was like, "Dad, are you gonna review that?" And I just looked at him. I was like, "You really think I'm gonna read that?" But anyway, I the the problem with this is if this was just in like an Elseworlds, kind of wild ending, and it didn't read like it was supposed to be the great culmination of that run. It didn't have that baggage. It
Mhm.
might have been a better read for me, and I don't mean to say that I was like real worked up about it or anything, because by the end of his run I had kind of checked out. So I'm not reading this going, oh no, you ruined everything. But on the other hand, if you were to take it that seriously, Austin, and read his whole run and then read this as the ending of it, oh god, does Batman get thrown under the bus. Like, that's awful. Like, that would be an
Mhm.
awful thing to do to his Batman if you were invested in it. You see what I'm saying? So, like, just
Yeah.
as an idea to have Batman be the villain and get pushed that far, I would love to buy it. I didn't
Mhm.
really with this. I also couldn't
Yeah.
stop thinking about, and this was distracting. I also couldn't stop thinking about evil Kevin Conroy Batman from the CW crossover.
Oh, the best evil Batman.
I was thinking that the whole time.
Oh, that's funny. I'm like the one person that loves Kevin Conroy, evil Batman, in that because everyone goes, they ruined Kevin Conroy, and I'm like, he's the only one who looks like he's having any fun.
And
Anyways,
then
we
one of
don't
the
have to
things that
go into
doesn't
that
help with
though.
this is just your main character is a clone.
Hmm. Yeah, just so that we can get to that. Like I said, that machine that he has that makes new Batman. That whole thing's so dumb.
Yeah, that by itself kind of throws his Batman under the bus. Because just on paper as an idea, the notion that, like, outside of any stories, the notion that Batman would get to a place where he thinks there always has to be a Batman, so he's got to do something about that. Sure, but like at the point that he's cloning himself,
When I also
you've
need
maybe
to
lost
know
me. I
how
don't know.
much. I also kind of need to know like how much of Batman is in him because they also say a line something like you have all of the history but like none of the past or something like that. Like it's
No, he
okay.
he has his memories. He just doesn't have his physical
Yeah.
scars because he didn't go through any of that.
Is that all it is?
That's all it
Okay.
is, as far as I understand.
Okay. Okay. Uh yeah, maybe it's just weird wording from the Joker. Okay.
Yeah,
No, that
maybe
makes
so.
sense then.
I've also never liked the way he writes Joker, so it was really hard for me
Mhm.
not to, uh, like, kind of pass over some of his dialogue.
Well, I think that's why he never finished his run is because I was kind of indifferent to Death of the Family. I
Yeah.
always have to like think about it for a second.
Oh, did
And
you never read Endgame?
no, so that was like the next one I had to go to because I read Court of the Owls and then Zero Year. For some reason, I skipped Death of the Family and then go back. And then I was like, oh, it's like another Joker thing. Like I'll read it at some point, and just kind of never got to it. And then everyone said his run either gets bad there at Endgame or it gets bad right after. So I never really bothered going back to it.
And we're just in a place where he's taken, and like he did this in his run, I guess too, but especially by this, he's just taken the furthest extremes of both Batman and the Joker to like an insane apex, right? Where his Batman thinks he's so necessary that he's cloning himself. I mean, I guess he'd already kind of gone off the deep end before he went off the deep end, right?
Mhm.
Your Joker seems to only exist, and like it's okay to have this as a component of this character, right? Where he can justify some of what he does as being the foil for Batman. He's necessary evil. But Snyder just takes that to 11. He just takes it way too far. He almost tries to make the Joker an endearing character now where everybody he's murdered is okay. Almost
Mhm.
because he's just motivating Batman. That's how this reads to me.
So I was talking to Dan about this earlier. I was kind of explaining this book to him, and he was like, "Oh, this book sounds awful." But I was explaining why I don't like modern Batman and Joker, and he summed it up perfectly. Where he said, "We hit a point where we stopped right, or sorry, we hit a point where the subtext just became the only text."
Yeah, he said that to me
Uh,
before
and,
too.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's a perfect way to describe it. That is exactly what they've become at this point.
If you take Batman back to brass tacks, you know we've got this, like you said, this worry that everything's been done with Batman, and we've got to come up with these crazy gimmicks to do new things. If you take it back to brass tacks and you just tell, like smaller, inconsequential detective stories, that would feel like a novelty now. And it would feel like you were doing things you've never done before because it's been so long since that was the standard. Even when you have all of these out of continuity Batman stories, they almost all feel too big and too celebratory. Like I love White Knight. I cannot have everything be White Knight. Everything is too much of a celebration of the history of Batman. You know, everything ends up in its way being like Return of the Cape Crusaders, which I love as a movie event. But can we just have Batman like find some clues with a murder and then it not turn out to be some like spiraling retroactive like deconstruction of his past? Like stop it.
Well, I'd like to see somebody even come in and do like another Jim Starlin type run where when Starlin does Batman, he doesn't even use the Rogues Gallery. Um, like obviously you get Death in the Family at the end of his run with Joker, but that's kind of it. Like outside of that, it's just crime stories. I would
Yeah.
like to see somebody come back and do something like that.
Yeah, so would I.
And
But
then with
yeah.
that specifically, that makes Joker feel bigger when he then comes in after you don't have any of that for a long period.
Yeah, and he doesn't have to always have a really convoluted, gigantic plot. It's like Joker has to be gone for several months because he's planning the next DC event.
No, and I miss what
You know,
in
Joker
that.
is editorial. Like he's deciding what the next big seller for the company is going to be. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, and I miss like a Joker that can be hanging out with Scarecrow and like picking on the mayor or whatever in that Nightfall story. Where it's like
Yeah.
he's just getting him to like prank call people. Like it's just really stupid.
Well, and
Like I miss that fun side of the
it can be
Joker.
big in that he's terrorizing the whole city or whatever, but it doesn't
Mhm.
always have to be like Dan was saying, this massive subtextual thing where like I'm supposed
Mhm.
to think about it for 5 hours and it's brilliant. Like
Mhm. Yeah, we've done the like big meta uh, story with the two of them so many times, especially Snyder.
yeah.
Like we don't need to keep doing it.
And also I feel like we've taken the popularity of that character or allowed that to inform the writing with the Joker uh to an apex also, where it's like in this, and we've been doing this a lot lately, I think. Joker's got to be a more like weirdly heroic character or Batman sidekick or something because he's beloved by the readership, and so that's informing that too much. He can't just
Mhm.
he's either got to be really important in telling you something about Batman, or he's got to be a hero in his own right because he's too popular. He can't just
Mhm.
be psychotic clown. And
Yeah.
he can be more than that, and it still not be pretentious, right? Like I still like the take, I of the Joker where you have to wonder if he's crazy or not. Like I've always found that fascinating. You know, like can somebody murder as many people as he does for seemingly no reason and not actually have a mental break? That's cool. Um, Doing that doesn't mean that you're taking yourself too seriously. That could just be what the character's about.
Yeah, no, I agree. Tyler says in the chat also says that we should read Batman Dark Patterns. That's actually been on my list of things to check out because I've heard are cool. That and there's I think a Dan Jurgens book that's like a period piece,
Oh, cool.
like noir Batman thing that I want to check out.
Well, I was
I
going to
think
say
that's
earlier,
who it is.
I'm
Like,
sure there are exceptions to this rule because
mhm.
DC is publishing too much Batman for there not to be. But I'm
Yeah,
just
there is at the
saying
end of the day like 8,000
the
things, but
majority of it feels too big. But I've not been reading
mm,
everything, so I'm sure that there are some. But when does well, hopefully it's about to happen. I was going to say, when does mainstream like detective or the book just called Batman go back to it? Maybe with Fraction it will, and
mhm.
I am stoked about that. I think there's a good chance that Fraction will give us exactly what we're asking for.
Yeah, I hope Fractions Run is cool. I'll definitely check that out when it starts.
That's the first time I've been really excited about anything in mainline continuity
I am
in
trying
a
to
long
temper
time.
expectations because I also thought Zdarsky getting Batman was really cool after everybody loved his Daredevil.
That's
So at the same
fair.
time, I am like, don't get too excited,
Yeah,
but
no, that's
hopefully it's
fair.
cool.
And I don't mean to throw DC under the bus. We reviewed some new stuff
Oh
from them
yes,
last
Batman
year.
First Night is that Jurgens book. Sorry, James Egan just threw it out. I couldn't remember the name. Thank you.
We reviewed some stuff, some newer stuff from them last year, and we were liking some of it. But I'm just saying this is the first time I've heard about something that I was kind of excited about in a
I
while.
feel like it was even longer than that. I feel like that was like almost 2 or 3 years ago
Maybe
now,
it was
maybe
a couple
two.
years ago. I don't know.
Yeah,
I've had a kid since then. It all blurs together.
exactly.
Bob the Hun put
That's
in
how
five.
Cap tells time is how many kids it's been.
That's what happens because that first year goes by so fast.
Mm.
Bob the Hun $5 super chat. What Cap is describing is called the divergent continuity, like how Batman Year One leads into both All Star Batman and mainstream DC continuity.
Yep,
I
that
mean,
is true. I don't remember what we were talking about, but
we
yeah.
with the idea of some of these
Oh,
Black
of how
Label
this is
books
like also kind of the
being
okay, yeah.
the end of a run, but not being in continuity. Yeah, that whole thing. Um, I mean, I never bought that with All Star, but sure.
No, All Star's main continuity in my eyes.
Like the idea that that thing has anything at all to do with any of Miller's other books is preposterous to me.
Oh, it's awesome.
I've never bought
I
that.
love that part of his universe is also the Spawn book.
I know. I know it's
It's really
great.
funny.
And that's not even an interdimensional thing. Spawn just is in that universe. He just shows up. Like,
No, so that means that Spawn technically is in the same world as the Dark Knight Strikes Again.
yeah, which means like Gotham exists in that world with New York City. Like, all right.
Yeah. Which is, I actually thought about that book while reading this because I was like, okay, everybody hates Dark Knight Strikes Again, but at the same time, I'm like, there's also interesting ideas in Dark Knight Strikes Again. Like, whether you think that they work or not is a whole other thing, but like, I would still take it over something like this.
Yeah, and it's overstuffed, but not in the way this is. And it's
Hmm.
kind of counterintuitive, but not in the way that this is. It was also crazier back then than this is crazy now.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like
No,
that is
'cause,
a
like Crazy used to be like,
that's a wild book when that
like
comes out.
like that or like Spider-Man Rain, and we're not really gonna make that kind of thing anymore. I don't think.
Yeah, I just feel like Snyder needs to not just I does DC need to get back to brass tacks with Batman, but Snyder needs to get back to brass tacks with his own writing. I read something like this and it feels like how can we get even wackier in certain ways than like Dark Knight's Metal or something? And I'm like, you got to quit trying to top yourself in that way.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like the Nothingverse Batman book is kind of what um, people are having with that, I guess. So
Okay,
if
sure.
that's what that is, then that's awesome. I personally would like to see him, like I said earlier, go to either Marvel, uh, jump over to Creator owned.
I'm with you.
Like I would like to see Snyder kind of take a break at least from DC. And Capullo's at Marvel now. Go. He wants to do Fantastic Four. Go do a Fantastic Four book with him, Snyder.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Something just very different from Batman.
Well, and we haven't talked
And you
about
can do some of that. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say we haven't talked about Capullo at all. This is like pretty standard for him. It all looks good, but it's what he and Snyder kind of always look like together. I like a
Yeah,
lot of the
exactly.
color
It's,
work in
it's
this book.
Capullo. It's great.
Yeah, Those look good. It's just it's funny when it gets off the rails and I'm not buying character stuff because Capullo starts on Spawn and I start to have PTSD. I start to have flashbacks because it like at Snyder's worst, his Batman stuff reads like Spawn to me because you have Capullo there and I'm not buying character stuff. And it also gets sappy in the same way Spawn sometimes does.
At the very least, Snyder probably doesn't write in 2-page chunks.
No, I would imagine Capullo does not get frustrated with his scripts in the way he must have with Todd McFarlane.
Yeah, I mean, he did at the beginning, but I know from his Millar Time interview, but that's a whole other thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had like some beef at the beginning, and Snyder tried to get Capullo pulled from that book.
Isn't that crazy? And they've worked
I know,
together
isn't it?
forever now. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, and then they kind of like hashed things out, and then are friends now. But that's like a thing he talks about in that interview, and the way he describes it makes it sound like Snyder's kind of up his own ass, but like maybe not fully like realizing it. But I mean, that's whatever.
So we're kind of reading this, 6-year-old book as if it just came out because we don't really know much of what he's done in the last few years. I guess Tyler says Snyder took a massive break from DC after Death Metal to do creator own stuff, and of course we haven't read any of that stuff.
Oh, okay.
So we're saying like he should go do some creator own stuff. Apparently he did do that, and then he went back to DC to do this new Batman thing. So like it sounds like he did what you're talking about and just now
I mean
doing
that's
another
good.
book.
I did know that like he did at least like a book or two, but because I haven't been following like the metal stuff and whatnot, like it feels like I just constantly hear about new Batman things he's doing. So like it's easy for me to get kind of lost in that when I'm not following it.
Same here.
So like if that's genuinely what he did, then like I'm glad for him because I do like Snyder. Like I don't want to be super anti-Snyder.
Yeah, we were
he's
pretty
hit or
harsh on
miss.
this. This is kind of a baffling book.
Yeah, no, this feels like somebody who's just kind of done with the job that they're doing and like is kind of ready to move on but hasn't yet.
Well, it feels like 6 different ideas for different books.
Hmm.
Like we kind of just keep starting the book over.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And I kept going. Any of these fleshed out could like maybe has potential.
Hmm. Well, like I said too, like I also don't hate this book. Like it's more nothing to me than anything. So like I'm not even angry about it. Like it's just
It sounds like I maybe
it's
liked
kinda
it
dumb.
even less than you did.
Possibly, but like I think that's more so like I don't think it works. It just doesn't leave enough of an impression. Like I will forget that I read this
Yeah,
in like a month. Like in a month, ask me in a video if I remember reading the book, and I will probably be like, "What? I don't know what you're talking about."
well, I don't know. It makes a big deal on the like back covers and stuff. Is like, this is supposed to be the ultimate conclusion of Snyder's run. So I'm taking it on that term on those
When
terms
you've
when I
also
first
read
start
more of
reading it.
Snyder's run too, so it's like you have
Yeah,
more of a connection to that. While I kind of called it quits when it was still good.
sure. So like I said, I'm not up in arms about it or anything because I'm not real invested in
Yeah.
this stuff anymore. But I am looking at it as what it's trying to accomplish,
Hmm.
and it's failing at that for me.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. Like I didn't hate this either, but I don't like it. Like I don't think it's very
No, and
good.
it just gets worse as it goes along. As things just kind of get compounded and compounded on top of each other.
Anything else we didn't bring up that you want to, Austin, before we reveal next week's
I guess we should
request?
I guess we should probably talk about the beginning of like each issue where it has the Joe Chill thing because we didn't really talk about that.
Yeah, that's true. We did not. That's another one
Not
of
that
those
it really.
gimmicky ideas where it goes. Here's this insane thing that would retroactively be this like giant convoluted change in Batman's origin, and like, psych, it isn't that. And then turns out to be the Joker just trying to motivate Batman again. I'm like, Joker, that's a really convoluted and I don't even buy that he could pull that off.
Hmm. No, I mean, I was glad that it wasn't literally Thomas Wayne accidentally killed, or maybe not even accidentally, because the implication was he was drunk during surgery.
Well, it would still
But
be an
Thomas,
accident. It's just incompetent.
yeah, but like, it's a little more. But anyways, I'm glad that it wasn't that Thomas Wayne killed Joe Chill's daughter, and that's why Joe Chill killed them. But at the same time, Joker doing that was really dumb. Like, I don't know.
It felt like such an
It also just
afterthought to
seemed like it
me.
had nothing to do with anything, especially because, like you
Hmm.
said, like that's some of the most like noir parts of this book, like especially in how it looks. Like
Yeah,
you could have built a book just out of that, and then it kind of has nothing to do with anything.
yeah. I it really felt like an afterthought. It felt like he had this notion of what if Batman was led to believe at least that Joe Chill's murdering of his parents was retribution for something, and then he's got to have Joker in the story, and he's this head that's being bounced around, and then he goes, "I, well, I've got this dangling thread. Like, how could I?" And like, maybe he always planned for that to be the ending, but it kind of reads like, I never wrapped that up. How am I gonna do that? I guess the Joker did it.
Hmm. Well, I was thinking too. I was like, okay, you and I have kind of talked a little bit about how you like how the Telltale games do the Waynes, like they're not great people, and you kind of wish that the Batman maybe did that because it
Um,
hints at it.
if I
Well,
if I said that, I don't agree with that now. I don't remember ever saying that. I no, my thing is the Telltale games. That was a cool alternate history thing to do for Batman. I don't want that to be definitive, like Batman thing. I didn't like that it was raised at all.
oh,
Is
okay.
my thing, and then I if you're gonna do it, it kind of feels like a cop out to me a little bit. But I don't since I don't want it to happen. I don't really love that they raised
Okay,
it.
well, I guess because it's not my opinion. I had it modeled, but anyways, my point that I
Yeah,
was gonna
sorry.
say is that
Also,
if that were a
your
debate,
opinions change over time. So I'm sitting here like, that's on
yeah.
recording. I don't know what the hell I said, but just right now in the moment, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. But anyway, go ahead.
No, I was going to say if that were a debate, because it's not, um, we could at least look at this book as the worst example of all of them, where it's like, well, at least we can agree it's not that.
Yeah, that's what it actually was.
Yeah, at least it's not what they do with Joe Chill in this. Oh, and Tyler says I do know about the what they're doing with Joe Chill in Detective Comics, and I think I told Cap about it. That Bruce is dating Joe Chill's daughter,
Yeah, you did tell me about that.
and yeah, that's dumb. But we haven't done it before, so it's something new to do.
Well, I mean, obviously that's dumb because his dad killed her. So, like, how could he possibly be dating her? Thomas Wayne killed her, on the operating table. How's
No,
it
that was the
possible?
son. Thomas
Oh,
Wayne killed Joe Chill's son. Joe Chill killed them, and then Batman banged Joe Chill's daughter as
you
revenge.
said it was his daughter, and I was just believing you. In the book, is it said that it's his son or his daughter? You said daughter.
No, he's in Detective Comics. He's dating Joe
I know,
Chill's
but
daughter,
in
but
this,
in
you
this,
said
did
Thomas
I say
Wayne killed his
daughter?
daughter. That's what you said, and so I assumed I
Oh,
read it wrong.
if I did,
No,
I
that's dumb.
misspoke. No,
It's a son because we see the
it's a
corpse and
son
it's a boy. What am I talking about?
because it's supposed to look like
You
Bruce
said
Wayne.
you said
Yeah.
daughter and
Did I
I didn't
say
correct you.
daughter?
You did.
Okay, I just misspoke.
You
Okay.
absolutely did. I will roll it back and find it. You absolutely did.
Yeah.
Tyler Zayas
Oh
says,
well.
yeah, I know, who cares? Tyler Zayas says it's dumb, but the story is actually pretty good.
Oh, okay. I mean, that is something I guess you could make work, especially as like a reveal. I guess like they didn't know, but I just when you hear that as an idea, you're like, what? Why are we doing that?
Can you? I mean, yeah, I have that too. Can you imagine that as a panel? Like the pillow talk is, by the way, my father murdered your parents.
No, you know what it is.
What's
You know
that?
that like, you know that page everybody makes fun of in Spider-Man Sin's Past, when it's like cutting back and forth between Green Goblin killing Gwen to him having sex with Gwen. It's that, but it's the Batman origin and Bruce Wayne having sex with Joe Chill's daughter,
Oh no. Who is writing
and
it?
they
Who is
and
writing
they
right
write
now?
bang on all of the panels, so you get really get it.
But who's on the book that's doing that?
I'm actually not sure who's on Detective right now.
Because
Like I know who's on the
that's not
main.
the Zarsky thing, is it?
No, it's in Detective. So I mean, maybe he's also playing with that. I don't
Okay.
know, but I don't know who's on Detective. Oh, is it still Ram V? I know he was on
I have no idea.
Detective. I don't know if he still is. He was on Detective when we did that Dawn of DC video.
Well, after Tyler said that, I
Oh, it's
might.
Tom Taylor. Oh, I did know it was Tom
Oh,
Taylor because that was in that
I knew that
the
too.
article
That's
that I
right.
found it. Yeah,
Um,
that's right.
maybe I'll take a look at that just out of curiosity. Now that I've heard somebody say it's actually good, but that does not, just based on my experience with that writer, sound like the kind of thing Tom Taylor would be good at. He's better at kind of more wacky, cartoony hijinks kind of stuff. Like I don't know if I want to see him attempt a delicate romance.
No, I'm starting to realize more and more because I used to think like, oh, I like Tom Taylor, and now I realize more and more like, oh, but I like him when he's doing things that I have like I don't know, like it's like a video game tie-in or like it's like a cartoony thing.
Yeah.
I don't know that I necessarily like Tom Taylor when he's writing stuff outside of that, but and even
No.
some of that, but
Yeah. In a weird way, he's kind of like, um, what's his face? The Spider-Man writer I don't like, Spider Verse and all of that. I just
oh,
can't.
Dan
Dan
Slott.
Slott. In a way, he's kind of like Dan Slott. Because Slott, when he's doing cartoon stuff, is fine. And it's weird because Tom Taylor does like really violent for adult cartoon stuff, but it's still kind of cartoony. So like you want him to stay in the deceased lane. Like I don't know about him. And he wrote popular enough stuff that of course inevitably he was going to end up writing mainstream continuity. I was always a little iffy on that happening. I was like that doesn't seem like his wheelhouse, but
Well, I also feel like maybe like Tom Taylor. I wouldn't say he's a bad writer. Like I do think he's a good writer,
no,
but
I wouldn't either.
he's maybe been pushed like too far to like the head of DC
Yep.
as like one of their go-to people. Well, he maybe should be a little lower than that.
Just like Dan Slott.
Sure, yeah. I mean, and that happens all the time. Like I could say the same thing about Tom King. Like I don't think Tom King should be writing 8 billion uh, DC things, but like some of his stuff does work. So like
Yeah,
I also wouldn't say that he's a bad writer. It's
no,
just that
I think the difference with Tom King is I could see why you would have expected that to work out. Like it's kind of a different
yeah,
thing because his best stuff is very adult and nuanced, and you know what I mean. Like we're
yeah.
not we're
No, I
not
mean there
talking
are
about
different
a
types of
we're not
writers.
talking about a workman writer or a cartoony sort of writer. We're talking about a guy that has short term 6 to 12 issue visions that doesn't really make sense on a regular monthly book. So that's kind of
Or with
that's kind of
specific
different.
characters.
Or
Yeah,
specific
no,
characters.
that is true.
He could have been a go-to guy, but in a particular format. I
Mhm.
and I guess you could say the same thing about Tom Taylor. But anyway, we've been doing this a
Yeah,
lot
now we're
lately,
just being mean to
where we
writers.
where we spend the last 20 minutes of the stream talking about everything but the thing that we came in to talk about. Next week we're gonna review one of Austin's recent favorite movies. We got a request from Stone Gaspman on The Substance, which I have not seen yet.
Yeah. My favorite film of last year, and I'm really excited to see Cap react to it.
I'm nervous. But just what you told me earlier about the last 20 minutes. You're like, I think you'll really like it until the last 20 minutes. So I'm gonna be really strapped in
Well,
now.
I think I said that to you when I saw it, because while watching it, I was like, oh, I feel like Cap would probably like this. And then I got to the last 20 minutes, and I was like, he probably wouldn't.
Oops, never mind.
So I think no, I actually remember because I got out of the theater and I said I saw this new film called The Substance. It was really great. And you were like, "Oh, good. Should I see it?" And I was like,
No.
"Uh, I don't know." So I'm glad somebody requested it.
Yeah. Well, I'm very curious now. Well,
Yeah,
thanks a
watch. I'm
lot.
gonna hype
Yeah,
it up too much, and then you're gonna see it, and you're gonna be like, "Oh no, this is good."
that wasn't a big deal.
That wasn't that crazy.
I didn't need a cold shower afterwards. I'm good.
No, you'll be fine.
Everybody, thanks a lot for watching. We sure appreciate it, and we hope to do more comics in the not too distant future. We've been trying to get back to regular weekly comic reviews, and we keep having new stuff that we've been having to do on Mondays. So we haven't
We're doing
been
so
able to
much
get back to
catch
that
up
yet.
too.
Yeah, a lot of catch up right now. The hope is next Monday we can tackle your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I don't know if I can get it all watched by then. I'm gonna try, but that's the hope
Yeah, and
right
that's
now.
what 10 episodes,
I
I
think it's only
think.
8.
Oh, okay, it's only 8. Okay,
I think
that's
so.
not too bad.
Shouldn't be too bad. I'm hearing
Heck
mixed
yeah.
things with that. I mean, like a lot of people really like it. I'm hearing mixed things about what people are expecting me to say about it, which is funny. I'm hearing a lot of like, "This is great. Cap won't like it," so we'll see what that's like.
Yeah, I still haven't watched it, but I had the weirdest thing where I
People
heard
think
the
they
intro
really
for
know
it.
me.
Exactly. I heard the intro for it, and I was like, "That's really cringy." And then it's like slowly grown on me over time. So
Yeah, I didn't like that
maybe the
either.
show,
I heard that before
yeah,
the show came out, and I was like, I don't know about that.
yeah, it's like slowly growing on me, and I can't really explain why because I feel
like
like
a
it shouldn't.
like a
It's the type of
fungus. It's because
it's the type of thing where I'm like, I shouldn't like this, but I don't know, I kind of like
it's
it.
worked its way into
It's
your
not bad.
soul and it's gone beyond opinion now. It's just in there. And so you're like, do I
Exactly.
like this or is it a part of me? Like it's like a fungus.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's not how a fungus works. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you
I
again
mean,
real
I am a
soon.
fun guy.
Austin and I
Good
will
night,
be
everybody.
Austin and I will be back tomorrow night for a rewind commentary on the original Superman movie. Excited to do that with Austin. We've never talked together about that movie besides in the top 100 superhero movies list. But we've never done a review together, so that'll be
Yeah, where
fun.
Cap hated that movie, and I thought it was great,
That's
so it's
not
gonna be a fun
true.
rewind.
Well, and it's funny because now that I've gone back and watched it again, I've got new thoughts about that ending. So,
You're like, now it's even lower.
it is a soap opera with that ending with me. Anyway, so join us for that tomorrow night. And I've been doing some background research and learning things I didn't know about that, which is neat because like I thought I'd kind of mined that and wasn't gonna have anything new to say, and I'm finding out some stuff if I remember any of it. So
Yeah, if I remember to do it, I might send you the Jeff Johns Millar Time interview because they talk quite a bit about that there. Because Jeff Johns used to work for Richard
Donner,
Donner. I don't know if it
yeah,
would give you some new info, but he and Kevin Feige used to be like assistants for Donner.
that's really cool.
Hmm.
Well, anyway, thanks again for watching, everybody. We'll see you again real soon. I was Captain Logan, and this was Austin the Day Ghost. Bye,
Yeah,
folks.
see ya, everybody.